Uh, I am heartbroken. At the time of filming, it is July 16th, 2017, 6:43 p.m. About an hour ago, I I heard news of director George A. Romero's passing. He was 77 years old, and he died of lung cancer. George Romero is a big inspiration on my life. He directed Dawn of the Dead from '78, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. He's given us a lot in the horror genre. If it wasn't for him, we would not have the modern zombie film. Uh, but not only did he give us Dawn and Day and Night of the Living Dead, he gave us Diary of the Dead, which I honestly think is a pretty solid movie, and Land of the Dead, which I think is also a very solid movie that gets a bit too much hate. And other than directing that, he was responsible for Creepshow, one of the greatest anthology films of all time. He's responsible for Bruiser, which is a really good '90s kind of psychological horror film, like weird psychological body horror type film. He's responsible for The Crazies from '73, which is one of my, I'd honestly say, one of the creepiest horror movies I've ever seen, in my opinion. Mainly because it is, I have an extreme fear of being quarantined. The man has given us a lot over the years, and this death is affecting me, honestly, as much, if not more, than Wes Craven's death or Herschel Gordon Lewis's death. Two deaths amongst the whole genre that have happened in the past couple of years that were very big. Especially Herschel's. I'll never forget where I was when I heard heard of Herschel's passing, and I'll never forget where I was when I first saw Dawn of the Dead. I'm sorry. I'll never forget when I first watched Day of the Dead. I'll never forget when I first watched Land, or I watched Diary. I got around to watching Diary this year, and I'll never forget when I watched Dawn. My first experience with Dawn of the Dead is a very personal one, and I kind of like to believe that after after somebody's passing, there should be a period of mourning and a period of celebration to celebrate their life, especially if they're a director, celebrate their work and all they've given us. And I legitimately believe that that George Romero is one of the greatest directors of all time. So, in order to celebrate his work, I'm going to try not to cry through this whole fucking thing. I make myself look like a fucking fool. I'm going to watch the Anthology film from 1990, co-directed by Romero, Two Evil Eyes, essentially a 2-hour-long anthology film featuring two segments, one of which directed by George Romero and the other directed by Dario Argento. And both of these segments are based on works of based on the works of Edgar Allan Poe. If you can't tell, I'm not in my room at the moment. I'm actually down in the living room because nobody's home. A and B, I didn't want to move from where I was. So yeah, this is going to be a review where I'm probably going to cry through the entire thing, so be prepared for that. But I've actually been interested in seeing Two Evil Eyes for quite a while. I'm also gonna get around to watching Martin as well as Night Riders from Romero, and I will finally sit down and watch Survival of the Dead after owning it for such a long time and hearing so many terrible things about the film. I actually want to sit down and watch it now, but I figured I'd do something to honor his death. So this review is honored. I dedicate this review to the memory of George A. Romero. I'll never forget the last time I watched Dawn of the Dead actually was on his birthday this year. I'd gotten friends together, we were going to watch movies, and I heard it was actually going to be his birthday. He was going to be 77, and I was like, guys, let's watch Dawn, because none of my friends had ever seen it. And that was the first time that any of them ever saw it. I'm really rambling now. I'm just gonna go ahead and start watching the movie. So, yeah. Let's just fucking do this. Oh, fuck. Okay, so the first segment of the film I cannot remember the title of for the life of me. But I'm just going to review the two segments individually on their own. So the first segment is George Romero's segment, and it is essentially about this gold-digging flight attendant, ex-flight attendant, who gets married to this rich guy. This rich guy has some kind of weird disease, or some kind of weird illness that and the doctors have basically given him a couple weeks to live, and he has signed off all of his assets and all of his stocks and bonds and everything to his young wife, who is the gold-digging ex-flight attendant. And as it turns out, this ex-flight attendant actually had a boyfriend when she got together with this rich dude. Her boyfriend turns out to be both a hypnotist and a doctor, and happens to be the same doctor that's looking after this old dude. And they kind of hatch a plan to hypnotize this old man into agreeing to sign over everything he has to his young wife before he dies, so that way once he dies, both of them can split everything she gets out of this, and they can live happily ever after. This doesn't go so well when the old man ends up dying a little too soon, and they still need him to be alive for a couple more weeks, so that way they can gain all of the money and all of his assets completely. So they decide to keep his body in the freezer and just basically announce that he died once everything is finalized, and then they will go into hiding, because obviously the doctors will be able to tell, any doctor will be able to, that will examine his body will be able to tell that he had been dead for weeks. This doesn't go so well either when they start hearing his voice from beyond the grave, threatening them and saying he's in a different place, saying he's in some place that's very dark and he sees a bright light and he's there with a bunch of other people. Really, I don't want to spoil everything this segment has to offer, because it's a really interesting segment. It like I said, this film is an anthology film of 2 segments, 2 hours long, so each segment's about 55 minutes apiece, which I think is the perfect amount of time to tell a story like this. The story for this one is really interesting. I'm not too familiar with Edgar Allan Poe's actual work as a writer. I used to read a lot of his stuff when I was younger. I kind of don't read much Poe anymore. In my later teen years, I got into a lot of Lovecraft, and I'm still very much into Lovecraft. But this segment is a very interesting one. It's very well written. The acting is pretty good. What there is of visual effects look good, and for the time, I'm sure they looked great. They've aged a little bit. They haven't aged too well. What there's of actual practical gore effects and makeup effects are really nice. It's got a nice atmosphere. It's got a nice pacing. It's very much a slow burn. It doesn't fully kind of get creepy until about, like, I want to say about half hour into the segment, and then weird creepy shit starts to happen, and it really starts to become a horror kind of segment. Everything from a technical standpoint, the lighting, camera work, music, sound mix, everything like that is very, very good. The film has a kind of cheap look. It has the kind of look of almost a TV movie. Not that that is an inherently negative comment, because I also think that at certain points, Creepshow kind of looks like a TV movie, and kind of has a cheap TV movie look sometimes. And Creepshow is one of the greatest anthology films ever made. This segment of the film really actually reminded me of the segment from Creepshow, Something to Tide You Over. The one being about the rich guy who drowns this young couple on a beach, and then they come back as zombies to get revenge on him. This is essentially the same segment, but kind of reversed, and the roles of the characters are reversed, and this one doesn't have Leslie Nielsen in it, sadly. But no, it's a really solid segment. I really liked it, definitely. It's a solid one. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say on the gore meter from 1 to 10, 1 being something like Nosferatu, 10 being something like Brain Dead. This first segment, which the title for it is like long. It's like the assets of... It's like the liquidation of the assets of Mr. Something or something like that. I cannot remember the title of it for the life of me. But I'm going to go ahead and say on the gore meter, this one sits probably about a 3. Like, it's not really, really gory, but there's like 2 moments in the film, there's 2 moments in this segment that get really, really bloody, and, kind of crank it up a little bit. And I think it really works within the pacing of this segment, because it really builds up to these big gory moments, and then they kind of end. Also, Tom Atkins makes a cameo as a police officer. Not really a cameo, but he shows up as a police officer in this segment. Tom Atkins, he was the father in Creepshow, and he was great in that. He was also the police officer in Night of the Creeps, and he was great as the police officer in Night of the Creeps. I'm getting like fucking chills just sitting here. Tom Atkins, he was also in Halloween 3 Season of the Witch and Maniac Cop. But yeah, he's in this as well, and he was pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see him in this. I'm going to go ahead and overall give this segment probably a 4 out of 5. It's not like the greatest segment from any anthology film ever, but for ones specifically directed by Romero, for like horror film segments from like horror film anthologies directed by Romero, it's a pretty good one. I would say it's like it would almost fit right in with Creepshow if they would just throw in some of the like comic book filters and transitions and the colorful lighting. I think it would fit right in with something like Creepshow. It really would. But yeah, on to the second segment. The second segment being directed by none other than Dario Argento. So yeah, let's fucking do this shit. Okay, and here we are on to the second segment of the film. The segment done by Dario Argento. This one is based on a Edgar Allan Poe short story that, again, I'm not too familiar with the story itself, but I'm familiar with another adaptation of it. That other adaptation being Lucio Fulci's adaptation of it, which is The Black Cat. Which I actually like The Black Cat quite a bit. I think this is a pretty cool little well, this particular adaptation from Lucio Fulci. Essentially, what we have with the Black Cat, at least in this segment of the film, this segment stars Harvey Keitel. Harvey Keitel is probably most well known for his portrayal of the Wolf in Pulp Fiction. I remember him quite a bit for being Sport, the pimp in Taxi Driver, who was a really interesting character. But this one stars Harvey Keitel. He puts in a great performance, as always with Harvey Keitel. Essentially, this segment is about an artist. Well, he's not really an artist, he's a photographer, and he likes to take photos of crime scenes. And he wants to get some new photos done because critics are saying he's a hack because he just keeps taking photos of crime scenes. He wants some new photos that are have a similar tone in the sense that they're very dark and gritty and kind of disturbing, but they're also very artful, and they don't involve corpses every single time. So Harvey Keitel's character named Rod lives in this house with his girlfriend of 4 years. They have not gotten married yet, and his girlfriend kind of takes in a stray cat. This stray cat really annoys him, so he tortures and kills it and takes photos of him strangling it and killing it to include in his book of images and to include in his portfolio. No, excuse me. And after he kills this cat, it seems to keep coming back. And then eventually his girlfriend is like, okay, I want to leave him. It's obvious he killed my cat. The cat didn't just run away. He's becoming increasingly violent. He's yelling at me. He's drinking more. I'm going to leave. And Harvey Keitel's character, Rod, does not want her to leave. And a bunch of other shit happens. People end up dead. Cats end up dead. I'm going to say this right now. If you like cats, don't watch this segment. If you like cats, just let me tell you that. Although they did put a little disclaimer at the end of the segment, that a little certificate saying the American Humane Society did confirm that the live cat that was used in the segment was not harmed in any way, physical or psychological, during the making of that segment. So that's really cool they threw that in there. But essentially, we have here, very similar to Romero's segment, is that it's a very well-paced, atmospheric, creepy segment. Unlike Romero's segment, this one has a bit faster pace. It's a bit longer, but it has a faster pace and a lot more gore. Like right off the bat, you see a woman who has been cut in half with a swinging pendulum as a reference to the pendulum. And throughout this segment, you see multiple different crime scenes that Harvey Keitel's character visits, and there are always people that are horrifically mutilated or murdered or in pieces there. And so this segment has a lot more gore than Romero's segment. It's about even on its atmosphere and creepiness. I'll be honest, I think this segment's a little better than Romero's, mainly because it's a lot faster paced. It's a lot more interesting, and it took a Poe story that, again, I'm somewhat familiar with, and kind of did his own thing with it. While the first segment, which I still don't even remember the title of the first segment, was a Poe story I had literally never heard of in my entire life, and I still thought it was a great segment, but I just didn't know of it, so I didn't know whether it was a true to the T adaptation, or if it was just kind of modernized, probably a modernized version, but if it was changed quite a bit and there were only character names that were the same. At least here I know, at least out of another adaptation of this story, what's different. And it's different enough. It's not like it's a condensed 50-minute version of the Fulci film, because in the Fulci film this is fairly different from the Fulci film. What am I going to say? Acting's good, the writing's good, the cinematography is good. Like I said, it looks like a TV movie at times, but I think that is kind of the charm of these things, is that they're very mundane looking. which is really cool. You know, the kind of mundane, like, TV movie look of it, combined with the, you know, graphic violence, foul language, and other dark themes, really kind of, it was a really good kind of juxtaposition, honestly. The practical effects and the gore are really good. There's not many actual visual effects here, as far as I can remember. I don't think there were any, but there's cool. You know, the sets are nice. The effects are really good, and I don't know what else to say. It's a well put together segment. It's not. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I wouldn't say that it's not. That this movie as a whole isn't worth your time, nor is this segment not worth your time. This movie as a whole is a very good anthology film, because it's one of those rare anthology films where every segment is solid. The thing is, there's only 2 segments, so and they're both by directors who know their shit, so it's kind of hard not to fuck that up. On the gore meter from 1 to 10, 1 being something like the Corpse Grinders, and 10 being something like Peter Jackson, not 1 being something like Nosferatu, not the Corpse Grinders. That was the old gore meter. Nosferatu, 10 being something like Peter Jackson's Brain Dead. I would have to place this segment, The Black Cat, at probably a 5, maybe a 5.5. It's a pretty gnarly little segment, and pretty creepy and atmospheric. I'd probably have to give this segment probably a 4 out of 5 as well, which brings this whole film to a out of a 10 is 8 out of 10, and still 4 out of 5 on the 5 scale. So the whole film is immensely solid, very well made, very creepy, and very much worth a watch, worth a look, especially if you're looking for something amongst both Argento and Romero's kind of catalog that's pretty underlooked or overlooked. I think this one's pretty overlooked and kind of underrated, because I really had only heard about it before. I'd never really heard anything about it particularly. I just heard of it. Yeah, and this one's pretty solid. I actually like this one quite a bit. I'd definitely say it's an anthology film to look out for. I'm pretty sure the Blu-ray has gone out of print. At least that's what I had heard a few months back. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm gonna have to pick this one up. It's on. Oh, fucking Christ! It's on Amazon Prime streaming if you want to check it out. And yeah, this is Biscuit Boo Horror Reviews signing off. Peace.